Once it has been established that the European Union is competent to act in a given policy field, can the EU act freely? That means without incurring in any other limit? The answer is no. What it can actually do is in turn subject to constraint, and the main constraint is represented by the principle of proportionality. This principle ensures that the European action remains within the limits of powers conferred to it by the member states, and this even when it takes place within an area in which it is competent to act. In essence, this principle suggests that one should not crack a nut with a sledgehammer. The means used to achieve a specific objective, such as to protect your health, the environment, or your data on Facebook, must be tailored to that particular objective. In particular, if the EU can reach the same goal with a less intrusive mean, it should go for that option. Let's illustrate proportionality with an example taken from real life. As you know, the EU, together with many other countries around the world, seeks to limit the consumption of energy, in particular electricity, by citizens. It does so because of the high cost of energy, the environmental effects linked to its production, as well as the geopolitical complexities of energy supply. The policy goal of reducing individual consumption of energy, and in particular electricity, can be achieved in different ways. Let's pause here for a second and ask yourself, how would you suggest the EU or your own government to achieve this objective? In other words, how to induce individuals to use less energy in their daily lives? Well, each of the ideas you came up with, regardless of their merits, is called policy option. It is indeed one of the possible ways we may go to attain our policy objective. Thus, one policy option may be to limit the access to electricity in certain particular hours of the day, what may induce people to look for alternative sources of energy. Another may be to increase the price of the energy unit in order to discourage consumption. Another one may be to mandate energy labels on the electronic appliances consumers buy, such as washing machines and cleaning vacuums. Another one may be to educate citizens to have a more responsible use of energy by switching off the lamps, their computers, and other electronic equipment when they are not in use. Let's take a quiz together. From a proportionality perspective, which of the following is the most appropriate policy option to decrease individual consumption of electricity? Option 1, limiting access in certain hours. Option 2, increasing electricity price at the unit. Option 3, mandating labeling schemes on electronic appliances. Option 4, educating for a more responsible consumption. My educated guess is that in the current circumstances, the most likely answer you may get from a policymaker in your government or at the European level is labeling. This appears true for several reasons, and it derives from a proportionality analysis. Under proportionality, you should ask yourself the following. Is the proposed policy option suitable to achieve the declared goal? And if so, is the same policy option necessary to achieve that goal? First, let's ask yourself whether, if implemented, the proposed policy options we were thinking about are going to make a difference. You should inquire about the potential aptitude of each of those ideas to reduce individual energy consumption. Here it seems clear that on paper, all of the options above appear capable, although to a different extent, to attain their objective, to reduce electricity. Second, under necessity, you should also ask yourself whether these measures are going to be necessary to actually achieve that goal. Well, to make such an assessment, you should know how effective each of those policy options is in attaining the energy reduction you're looking for. In other words, which among the different options is the most promising in terms of energy reduction? It appears intuitive that education, per se, won't be as successful as a policy limiting access to electricity in certain hours. The second option is mandated to individuals. Individuals do not have a choice. They won't have access to electricity. While the first, education, leaves individuals free to enjoy energy access. This inevitably affects the success of the policy and therefore its necessity under the proportionality analysis. However, necessity does not suggest that the EU chooses automatically the most effective option to attain its objective. Rather, proportionality hints us to choose the policy option that, being among the most effective, is the one that brings us less cost. This does not only mean the least costly, but also the least intrusive to individual autonomy and the least trade restrictive. If examined in the light of this analysis, it appears clear that limiting access, increasing energy unit price, and mandating labeling schemes on electronic appliances are more promising than educating more responsible consumption. And also that among these three, the least restrictive and costly is labeling. It is therefore likely to be preferred over access restriction, which limits individual autonomy, and price increase, which might be discriminating among people on the basis of money, what we define a regressive policy. Let me provide you an example with the proportionality of a European policy as being at stake. In 2004, the European Union adopted the Airline Passengers' Right Regulation. This is an important law for all of us, regardless of where we live, because this regulation provides protection to all passengers, regardless of their actual citizenship, in the event of denial of boarding, what we call overbooking, and of cancellation of or long delays to flights in Europe, from Europe, and within Europe. Under that regulation, in the event of cancellation of a flight, the air carrier, be it Air France or Lufthansa or United Airlines, is to offer passengers a choice between the reimbursement of the cost of the tickets and the rerouting to their final destination. In the case of delay, the passengers are also entitled to free care, meals, refreshments, telephone calls, and in some circumstances, hotel accommodation. IATA, the Trade Association of Airline Carriers, and ELFA, the European Law Affairs Airline Association, including Ryanair, contested the European Passengers' Right Regulation by claiming, among many other things, that the measure this regulation prescribed were manifestly inappropriate for attaining the objective of strengthening their protection for passengers who suffer cancellation or long delays. This time, what was at stake was not the competence of the EU to act. Everybody knew the EU had the competence to step in. Rather, it is the proportionality of the adopted policy which was contested. In particular, the low-cost association, notably Ryanair, EasyJet, wondered, tongue-in-cheek, whether it was proportionate to impose on them the payment of 250 euros for a cancellation of a flight whose average price is 50 euros, sometimes much less than that. The court judged that the amount of the compensation did not appear excessive and that in any event the law affairs airlines did not qualify as a different market, justifying the application of different rules. To sum up, remember that every single time the European Union develops a new policy, be it the regulation of car safety or bank payments, what it proposes must be proportionate. That is, it should not crack a nut with a sledgehammer.